Who is the right man? Have you tried to find your ancestors' immigration records and had a difficult time? Maybe you found way too many of them to know which is the right man or woman. It's a very common problem. And maybe, I hate to tell you this, you might have grabbed an immigration record that really doesn't pertain to your ancestor. So what do? Today we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about things that you can do to protect yourself, little clues that you can gather to help you know whether or not you're grabbing the passenger list for your ancestor and not for somebody else's. In addition, I'm going to give you a little hack that allows you to download the information about your ancestor and manipulate it so that you can use that to also help you better identify whether or not this really is your ancestor or not. This is pretty cool. All right, I have a handout about this video because the hack is pretty complicated and I wanted to put it in writing for you, as well as all of the other information. It's 28 pages. This thing is huge. It talks about all of the things that you want to look at, those clues, so that you can determine whether or not these passenger lists do apply to your ancestor, as well as places that you can go to get passenger lists and some little tips on how to find passenger lists effectively. There's some really cool things there that we're going to be talking about today. And then it will show you the hack. So you can get this handout either through Etsy, which there'll be a link at the end of the video or a QR code at the end of the video for you to take a look at that. You can also get the handout if you are a member of Aimee's crew. Aimee's crew members get the handout of the month. So this will be the handout of December 2025 and January 2026. So you can get that there. Members of Aimee's crew also have access to live streams. And I do a monthly live stream where you can come on in, ask any questions that you'd like to ask, and I illustrate something. Like last month we did military records, and it was really fun. All right, so let's dive in. I'm Aimee Cross. I'm here to help you take your family history to the next level. I'm really excited to do this because I really think it's going to help you a lot. So let's start with some of the common errors, all right? You see the record and you go, bing, that's my guy because it's the right name. Well, oftentimes those names are less common than you think they are. Sometimes we don't know the exact time or place of immigration. So we're kind of reaching in the dark. That's dangerous. And while 12 million people immigrated through Ellis Island, there were other millions of people that immigrated either through Castle Island in New York or in completely other locations all over the country. So how do you know you got the right guy? There's a couple of things that you kind of want to be looking for. One, maybe you found him on a passenger list with his family, with his wife and children that were born in the home country. Perfect. The ages and the other information is matching up. You're looking good. Maybe you have another record that tells you exactly when and where and maybe even what ship that they arrived on. Perfect, right? That makes it so easy. Sometimes, a little bit more difficult, we need to identify them by examining the other people that traveled with them. It may not be family members, but it can be part of their fan group, the friends, associates, and neighbors that Elizabeth Shown Mills came up with, all right, our fan groups. Those people are really important because the reality is people often traveled together, right? Coming to a new place like that, not speaking the language, it's very helpful when you have a group of friends that you can be starting out with. So as I said before, there were multiple processing centers in New York. But you can also look for passenger lists of people arriving in Boston, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Maryland, Charleston, South Carolina, which is where the majority of the enslaved people from Africa came into. New Orleans, Louisiana was a very common place, as was Galveston, Texas. A lot of people don't realize that. And then finally on the West Coast, you have San Francisco, as well as other little places, right? They could have come into other ports as well. Because before 1855, there were no federally designated immigration centers. So wherever the ship docked, people would come into the country. The federal government took over processing in 1890. So that's an important fact to know because you're going to see a change in the records. Prior to 1890, the majority of the records are held by the state or the county, even more often by the county. But after 1890, they're going to be federal immigration records. And we haven't even talked border crossings with Canada and Mexico. Those weren't even recorded until almost 1900. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Did they travel by boat or did they come through by land? All right, let's move on to the clues. How do you gather the information to help you pick out the right person on a passenger manifest? And there's a couple of little things here. Now, I go into all of these in more detail in the handout, but the first thing that you want to take a look at is you want to take a look at the entire family. Too often we're too myopic. You want to look at all of the children and you want to make sure you know where they were born. Because if you had a couple of children born in Ireland, if the family was from Ireland, and then they show up in the United States and then the next child is born in the United States, you have a narrow window of time of when the family traveled from Ireland to the United States, and that makes things far easier. In addition, sometimes the children's records will give you the information that you need in order to find your family's passenger list. Now, I have had that happen multiple times where it wasn't my direct ancestor, but one of their other children that gave me what I needed to find that passenger list. Now, in the handout, I give an example of an experience that I had in discovering my ancestor and the different clues and how I interpreted them in order to find the correct passenger list. So what are some of the other records that can give you really important information that can help you in this process? And the first thing are vital records. You want to be looking at death records. They frequently gave information about place of birth. Not always, but sometimes they also gave information about the parents if it was known. So that's important to know. Obituaries sometimes talked a lot about when somebody came to a particular location and where they came from. In addition to other vital records like marriage records and birth records. Now, again, we're looking at the children of these individuals as well, because while the individual's records may not be helpful, their children's records might be. Now, of course, census records are crucial because they oftentimes ask place of birth, but they oftentimes also ask naturalization status and when somebody came into the United States. Now, remember, they were going off their memory. So you have to take those census records with a bit of a grain of salt because maybe they're remembering incorrectly, or maybe the enumerator asked the neighbor, which is possible. So you want to kind of take all of the information and put it together. And my guess is oftentimes in census records, if you have the option of seeing that information in various census records, they're not all going to completely agree. But at least it will give you a window of time that you can look at, okay? Now here's a chart that will show you the different US Census years and what type of information that we're talking about was asked. And hopefully this will be helpful to you. This leads us into naturalization. Frequently, the naturalization records can really give you a lot of really terrific information, and you've got to look for those, but a lot of people don't. They just like do a search on Ancestry or see if it pops in their hints, but naturalization records can be found, and frequently they are very, very helpful. Some naturalization records even include a picture of the individual. Now, the newer naturalization records asked lots of questions and a lot of very pertinent questions, including when they came into the United States, where they came, and sometimes the ship that they traveled on. Later naturalization records also demanded a certificate of arrival. And so this was a certificate that began to be issued to people so that they could then provide that to get their naturalization. And that gave all of the information about when they arrived in the United States. Sadly, the earlier naturalization records frequently don't include that pertinent information. They just ask that the person has renounced their allegiance to that country and that ruler. Some asked more. Some counties ask more, some ask less. It just kind of depends. Don't think that it's a hopeless thing because you might find what you're looking for. So give that a shot as well. Now, how do you find naturalization records? You can start with doing a search on the big sites like Ancestry, Fold3, MyHeritage, and even FamilySearch. Sometimes you can find what you're looking for. But a lot of times I like to go into the FamilySearch catalog where I can more closely examine what they do and don't have. So if I go to FamilySearch, and by the way, FamilySearch is a free site, I want to go up here to the search button and I want to go to catalog. And then I'm going to put in a particular location like Wyandotte, Kansas, and just click search. All right, now I'm going to scroll down and I will see here naturalization and citizenship and some indexes. So if I go here to these records, you can see that there are many different types of records and they're held in different places. So part of it may depend on the time period, but part of it may be you want to check different courts. Like these overlap with one another, but some are from the district court and some are from the court of common pleas. But some of the records are held on the state level. And if that's the case, you need to back up and go to the state. So I would just go to Kansas and search. And again, I have a lot of records. I'm going to scroll down to naturalization. And this is showing me that they had some district courts in Kansas, which was very common. And so we've got various district courts, first division, second division, etc. And then some other naturalization records that have been kept as well. So you want to do that. That helps you see maybe what's out there, and then you can more intentionally research. What are some of the other records that can help you out in this effort? You can also look at military records. Draft cards ask place of birth, and the World War I draft cards asked if they were a naturalized citizen or not. Pension records can sometimes give you a lot of information about when somebody came into the United States. We spoke a little while ago about obituaries, but you also want to check newspapers because newspapers would sometimes give you a lot of information about the individuals that lived within their county. They were the Facebook of today. So they might talk about when somebody had visitors and maybe where they came from. And then you also want to take a look at those county histories because county histories sometimes included biographies where people could submit information about their family. Those frequently talked about somebody's place of origin and often when they came into the United States. Now that you've assembled some of these clues and you know a little bit more about your ancestor, maybe a lot more about your ancestor, now you can more effectively search the passenger lists. Now, the big sites like Ancestry, MyHeritage, FamilySearch, Fold3, they all have passenger lists on them, and some have shared ones where you can find the same lists on multiple sites, but some sites have lists specific to their site. But I recommend that you search on multiple sites because even when they share lists, even when you see a list on multiple places, they frequently have been indexed independently. So you may be able to find the information on one website. It may come up with the family name that you're looking for, but not on the other because one was indexed incorrectly. That's a pretty cool tip, isn't it? All right, I want to take you through searching for a passenger list on a site like Ancestry because there's some things that really could make a big difference in how successful you are. Now let me review. This is one of my ancestors. I have yet to find his passenger list. I haven't found it yet. Michael Horan, he was born in Ireland and he died in Wapaka County, Wisconsin, where he lived the whole time he was in the United States. And I have his arrival on the 27th of July, 1848. Now that's from naturalization records. If I click on this, you can see it's from the 1900 census, which asked him the question when he immigrated. But it's also from his naturalization records. There's one there, and then I have the full naturalization record here as a source. So I know quite a bit, but I don't know where he came in. These naturalization records were early enough that they asked him when and where, but they didn't ask him on what ship, and I've not been able to find him. So why would that be the case? Well, maybe he wasn't honest. They didn't have those certificates of arrival at this time period. So maybe he said he came sooner than he really did because there was a waiting period to become a naturalized citizen, and maybe he wanted to become a naturalized citizen earlier. Maybe those records have been lost. That passenger ship list record for some reason has been lost. Maybe it's just been indexed incorrectly. But I can tell you one of my problems is there are a boatload of Michael Horans. It's a very common Irish name. And I probably do have it somewhere. I just haven't definitively found it. So if I go up here to the top and I click search, this is going to populate the information that already exists that I've inputted for Michael. And you can see right over here, that's where all of this information has been added. And then I can filter down here. Now I need to filter because I want to narrow this down to immigration and emigration. So I'm going to click that. And now I'm just looking at the records that are related to immigration and emigration. And so The other thing that happens that a lot of people don't know about, if I go up here to the top and click this little pencil to edit the search, now all of a sudden I have arrival and departure fields. They were not there before. And so a lot of times people are like, well, where is that? You got to click the immigration first, and then that opens up additional fields. That's true with a couple of the searches on Ancestry. So now I can put in the information that I know about Michael. So I know he supposedly came in 1848. He came in July, and he came into New York. I don't know for sure that he left from Ireland, so I'm not going to fill that out because sometimes less is more, and I'm going to click search. Now my first record, wow, I have a Michael Horan that arrived on the 20th of July. So this is off by just a few days and it's looking great. But if I go to this record, this is a infant. That says that right here. This is the same record, and here it says that this is an infant. I'm not going to pull up the record to show it to you, but that's not my Michael. So how can I narrow things down? There's a couple of things that I can do. I can use these sliders right here in order to narrow down my time frame. So I'm going to make this within 2 years of 1848. And I'm going to say that it's definitely in New York, okay? And then I want to apply. Now I'm looking at results for, and this is the baby, again, that's not my guy. I'm not seeing the July, but I'm seeing a bunch of other candidates that could be my Michael. But how do I know? How do I know whether or not this is my Michael? This is where the hack comes in. But I'm going to make you wait because I want to show you a couple of other places where you can go to get passenger information before I show you the hack. The next place that I want you to go to is the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation. Now, this database has 65 million passenger records, so it's big. But there's some tricks to searching on this as well, and I want to show you. So if you go down here to start your search, you're going to go to the passenger search. And here I can put in Michael Horan, and I can look at results. Now, I have 137 exact matches. Now, do you remember in those passenger lists that we saw on Ancestry, they said MICL period? That was an abbreviation of Michael. None of those are going to be showing up here. This is a really important thing. It takes it very literally. So you need to filter. And this is doing just exact matches, but I could also do close matches. Sounds like alternate spelling, last name as first name, because sometimes those passenger lists reverse them. And when they've been indexed, they go into the database wrong. So the first name is after the last name and the last name is the first name. Get that? And then you can also have it contains. Now, if I deselect exact matches and do sounds like, and update that result, I've moved up to 559. What is that? 559 results. That's a lot. Now, you can use this wizard right up here to narrow things down, and you need to be able to use these arrows because there's multiple screens here, all right? So I know Michael's male. I'm not going to fill out this information because sometimes less is more. But I know Michael was born in about 1827, so I'm going to give a window here because who knows what he said. I'm not going to make that too tight. And then I'm going to make it even a little bit bigger. I'm not going to worry about age of arrival, but I'm going to say the year of arrival. We said he was supposedly here in 1848. So let's say 1845 to 1858. I'm not going to worry about any of this other information. Now I can go over to the next screen and I could say where he came into the arrival port, but we already know that's New York and this is Ellis Island. I'm not that worried about that. I'm not going to put any of this other information. I'm just going to update the result. Let's see what I get. Now I'm down to 47 results, okay? So now we're seeing Michaels with lots of different surname spellings because I said sounds like. Right? Now, if I want to narrow that back down again, I can filter it to alternate spellings. Let's do that. Now I'm down to 17. So I'm seeing a couple of different things, but the Michael is still spelled kind of different. So I may need to go in here and change that. So if I change it to MICHL Horan and click those results, now I am seeing another listing of individuals. So even though you can change those filters, you might want to play around with spellings anyway. At least that's been my experience on this website. Now, one of the other things that I really like here, though, is this one-page form right here. On this one-page form, it basically has it all in one spot, so I usually start there. Now, if I find one that looks good to me, I can click on this, and after I've logged in, I can take a look at the picture. Now, they want to sell you an image of it, but you don't need to pay for it. You can look at the text passenger list either right here, and this is where you get the information for the hack. Keep that in your mind. We're going to do that later, okay? Or if I scroll up, I can actually see the image of the passenger list. And I can go to full image, and I can then download that. I can double click on it and I can download that. Now, the other place that you gotta go if you're looking for passenger lists is Steve Morse's one-step site, and that's stevemorse.org. Now, he has a bunch of passenger lists. Now, he created this in order to make searching easier because when the Ellis Island website first came out, it was not super easy to search. And so he created this where if I search on the gold form of Ellis Island, I can use first names, last names, starts with, sounds like, contains, companions' names. I can search by those, ship names, a bunch of information here that I can put in order to search. And this website will comb the Ellis Island database and help you out. But what's even better is that it's not just Ellis Island. He's also got other places to go, and he's got links to other websites like Ancestry and FamilySearch. But if I scroll down here, you'll see we have Baltimore passengers, Boston, Galveston, New Orleans, Philadelphia, San Francisco. So this can be a very, very helpful place for you to go when you're looking for passenger lists. Thanks, Steve. This is a free site. Really appreciate that. Now, one other thing to keep in mind when you're searching for these names is the names, contrary to what a lot of people think, the names were not changed at Ellis Island. Now, they may have Americanized spelling like Johann and John, but for the most part, they weren't changed. Families often did change their names after they arrived in the United States because their names were too hard to pronounce. So that did happen, or maybe they just wanted to differentiate. Maybe I know of some people during World War I that changed their name to not reflect their German heritage because of the war. Things like that could happen. But they really weren't changed at Ellis Island. But you do need to look for those alternate spellings of names. The passenger lists that you're looking at are actually passenger lists that were created at the port of departure. And even though that paperwork was filed in New York, it's the information that they provided at the port of departure. So that can make a difference. All right, the hack. So let's say you're not finding it. You're like me with my Michael. I'm going to have to start looking at other information in order to find my Michael because I just have not found it anywhere. So how do I go about doing that? Let me show you how this works. So here are some of the passenger lists that are of interest to me that we talked about earlier. Now, this will only work when you have the image. So like this record is not going to help, but this one right here, you can see even if I highlight it, I can see an image. If I highlight this one, it's just indexed information. But if I let my cursor rise over it, I'm going to see the image. But I also have a little picture here with the view. So if I go to this record, then I want to click on the actual picture. And now that I'm there, I need to get those passengers. So I'm going to go right down here to the little person, and this gives me the indexed information of all of the passengers on this page. Now this is page 3 of 6. So there are 6 pages to this particular manifest. Now I do care about the people that were right around him because they might be really helpful for me. But in one of my instances, I had a father on one page, 2 pages later, the mother and the children. And I didn't know it right away. I wasn't sure if that was the father until I found the mother and the child and then looked around some more and found the father. This hack helps me more quickly see things like that. Before I get into the details of how I'm going to do this actually, let me show you why this can be helpful. Now here's an example of the spreadsheet that I created. All of the passengers, and this was like many page passenger list. It was a big boat. All of the passengers were listed and the various countries that they were listed in. I sorted the passengers because I was interested in those that had come from France. And then I sorted them alphabetically. Now I can take this passenger list and I can compare it to the census record where I find my ancestor in 1860. And I'm looking for people that lived around him in 1860 that may have been on that boat. And if I don't find anybody, then that may not be my guy. That may not be my passenger list, and I should try another one. Now that I have this listing here of all of the names that have been indexed on this passenger list, I'm going to hit on a Mac, Command A, and that's going to select all of the text on the page, even this stuff up here, but I'm not worried about that. On a Windows computer, you're going to hit Control A. Anyway, once I've selected all of those names, you see they're all highlighted, then I'm going to hit Command C, and that's going to copy them all. And then I'm going to open up an Excel spreadsheet, or really any kind of spreadsheet program. They'll all work. I'm going to show it to you on Excel. And I'm going to go over here to near the top, A1, or you could maybe drop down a little bit, but I'm just going to go to A1. So if I go up here to Edit, Paste Special, and I want to click Text. Okay. Now I'm going to have all of this information in the manner in which I want it. Now I got that stuff at the top that we kind of talked about earlier, but it's no big deal. Just click those numbers on the side and then select those rows. And then I'm going to edit and I'm going to delete them. You can also use shortcuts on your keyboard if you are familiar with those. So now I have the headings and I have the names. Now I actually want to insert I'm going to insert 2 rows here. I'm going to insert 2 rows. And on the first row, I want to put the information about this ship so that I have that. So I'm going to put Michael Horan, SS Barbara, arriving in New York the 11th of May, 1848. Now in the next row, I want to copy the web link of that particular website. So I'm going to go up here to the top and select all of this information. I'm going to Command Copy or Control Copy, and I'm going to put that right here in this cell. Now I have the web link and I can with one click go back to look at the images in this document. Now this is the first grouping, but this isn't really line 1, this is page 3. So I need to do one more thing. I need to insert another column and I'm going to call this the page number. And this was page 3, remember? So I'm going to copy that 3 and I'm going to paste it down the whole column till I've gotten everybody in that was on page 3. All right, so now I have page 3, but now I need to continue this with the other pages. So I could either manually change the page number here, but it's really easier to just use these arrows right here. So I'm going to go to the next page. Now I'm on 4 and you can see that they're all still highlighted. So I'm just going to click Command C and I'm going to copy all that information and then I'm going to paste it again. And I'm going to continue doing that with all of the pages of this manifest. Now I'm going to scroll up to where I have the end of my people. This is page 3. So I'm going to go right here. It doesn't matter if there's any text in here. It's not going to matter. Now I don't want to paste over here because these are now page numbers. So I need to paste right here. So I'm going to highlight that cell and then I'm going to go to Edit, Paste Special, and I'm going to do Text and OK. Now again, I have that other information in here that I don't want. I need to get rid of it every time. I'm just going to go through and get rid of that. This time I'm also going to get rid of the information there because I already have it at the top of the page. So I'm going to go up there, edit, and I'm going to delete. And now I have this grouping, but this is off of page 4. So now I'm going to copy the 4 and I'm going to take it down to all of the different people that were on page 4. When I'm done, I have this listing of all of the people that I found on those 6 pages. Now I want to sort them. What I want to do when I want to sort them is I need to gather all of this information and I can either click here or I can highlight all of the information, but I need to get it all because if I just copy some of this information, then this will not move with them. And sometimes your information that's specific to an individual may carry over to these other lines. So I'm going to just select all of the information that I have saved into my spreadsheet. I'm going to keep going until I've gotten all of it. And so now I've highlighted all of the different passengers that were on this passenger list. Now I want to go up here to data and I want to go to sort, or alternately I could go up here to data and I can go to sort. Now I'm going to sort by, and this is the column I want to sort by. I want to sort by the name and I want them to be alphabetical, and I'm going to say okay. Now in some passenger lists, I cared about the place of origin. Go up to data, sort, and I want to sort first by the place of origin, and then I want to add in a second sort, and I want to sort by their name. And that's what I've done in this spreadsheet. You can see that I have Bavaria, but if I go down a little bit further, then I'll see Belgium and France. So this sorted this grouping first by country, then by name. But have you noticed the problem? This is by first name. And maybe I want it by first name, which this works great. But what if you don't want it by first name? All right, this is what we need to do. The first thing that you need to do is you need to insert some columns. So highlight the column, insert column, and I need to do that twice, so I'm going to repeat it. I want to insert 2 columns. Sometimes you might need 3 if you run into a problem. I talk about that in my handout. By the way, another problem that you want to consider, if when you make this copy and it doesn't work, if for some reason your paste doesn't look good, restart your computer, because I did have that problem, but when I restarted my computer, whatever it did solved my problem. So that's another little hack for you. All right, so now I have these 2 columns, but now what I want to do is I want to highlight the names because I want to separate them into first name and last name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up there, I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to do text to columns. And then I want it to be delimited, so I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to click next. And I want to take off the tab and I want to add in the space. And then I just click next. I'm going to leave this all the same and I click finish. Now you can see that I have the first name in the first column, the last name for the most part in this column. But we'll see that this Bridges McIntyre, this got moved. So I need to manually, because I want all the last names. So this is going to now be first name and this is going to be last name. And then I'm going to change this to McIntyre. And on this one, this is Ed O. Gorman. So I'm going to manually go in and fix this. I'm going to copy that from this place and paste it there. And I'm going to continue to work my way down. And then after I've made all of those changes, then I'll select this column and I will just delete it by going up here to edit and delete. Now I want to resort the information. So I'm going to select all of the information again, and I'm going to go down until I've captured all of the names in the list. And I'm going to go up here to data and to sort, or you could do it, let me show you here if I were to do the same thing. Click on this data right here, sort. And now I want to sort by place of origin, but I don't want to sort by first name next. I want to sort by last name. And then I need to add another field, and then I want to sort by first name, and I want to click OK. And now I have this resorted by last name and then by first name. All right. And if I had multiple countries, then you would see those showing here like I showed you before. Now you can use the same hack on census records. You can do the very same thing with the census records, which can be really helpful because then you can go through, do the same thing with a census record and compare the two. Personally, I prefer to do it like in the example I showed you where I have the listing of the passengers alphabetically, and then I just kind of look through the neighborhood on the censuses or on a tax record, and I look to see if any of these names I can find quickly on that passenger list. For me, that works the best, but do what works for you, whatever floats your own boat. All right, I hope this has been really helpful for you. Here are the QR codes that I promised you. On the left is the QR code to order the handout on my Etsy page. On the right is the QR code to join the channel. Make sure you join as a member of Aimee's crew, not just supporting the channel. That way you get access to all of those benefits, the free handouts each month, as well as access to the live stream and being part of the live stream. Now, this video right here gives you some best search techniques on Ancestry, not only talking a little bit about the immigration, but other ways you can manipulate your searches, because I think those search techniques are very helpful and frequently not completely understood. So enjoy that, have a great day, and good luck finding your ancestors in those passenger lists. Take care.